Alright, so for episode 3, we're leaving Palmdale and Lancaster area for a second. Don't worry, I'll come back to it. But for now, we're moving towards Valencia, more specifically, Pico Canyon. And heading out there is a place called Mentryville. Now, if you've never heard of Mentryville before, it's basically an old ghost town tucked into the hills of Santa Clarita. And I don't mean ghost town like it just looks abandoned. I mean, this was an actual oil boom town from the late 1800s. People lived there, families were raised there. There was a schoolhouse, there were homes, there was work, there was money, and then slowly, like a lot of boom towns, it faded. People left, buildings emptied out, canyon got quiet. And somewhere along the way, people started saying the place wasn't fully empty. Now, I want to be clear before we get into it. The history of Mentryville is real. The location is real. The old oil town is real. But tonight's story is a dramatization horror story inspired by the real story, local rumors, and reported paranormal claims surrounding the area. So this is not me telling you, hey, this has definitely happened exactly like this. This is more like, what if one of those late night rumors was true? So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's get into it. So before we get to the creepy part, how the town ended up being the way it is, we have to go all the way back to the 1870s. Pico Canyon became one of the most important oil sites in California. There was a well out there called Pico Number 4. And from what I found, that well became a huge part of California oil history. The town of Mentryville grew around that oil activity. It was named after Charles Alexander Mentry, who was connected to the drilling operation. And at one point, Mentryville had over 100 families living there. That part is crazy to me because now when people think of it, they picture an abandoned whole ghost town in the canyon. But back then, it was somebody's whole life. Kids went to school there. People worked there. Families ate dinner there. People probably argued, laughed, fell in love, got sick, got old. All inside this little canyon town. And then over the time, the oil slowed down. The town started emptying out. And by the early 1900s and specifically into the 1930s, people started leaving. Some reportedly took their homes apart, board by board, and carried the materials away. So imagine that, a town that once had families, lights, noises, workers, kids, horses, tools, machinery, slowly becoming quiet, and eventually the canyon takes over again. That's already creepy. No ghosts needed. Just the idea of standing in a place where the whole town used to exist, and now it's just wind, old buildings, and silence. Now, over the years, Mentryville started gaining its haunted reputation. People have talked about hearing footsteps when no one is around, voices near empty buildings, movement inside structures, figures near windows, that kind of thing. And honestly, some places almost invite those stories. Old houses, old schoolhouses, old roads, and a canyon that gets dark fast. And that silence where every little sound feels 10 times louder than it should be, now that's scary. It could be animals, it could be old wood shifting, it could be wind moving through the broken spaces, it could be, your nerves making everything feel bigger than it is, but still, there's something different about ghost towns because they don't just feel abandoned, they feel interrupted. Like everybody left in the middle of the night, and when you walk through those places like that, your brain starts wondering what was left behind. That's where tonight's story comes in. This one supposedly happened sometime in the early 2010s. A small group of friends from Santa Clarita area decided to go to Mentryville near the sunset. Not to vandalize anything, not to break in, just to film. They were into creepy locations, old buildings, abandoned history, that whole thing. And at first, according to the story, the trip was normal. They parked, they walked around, they took pictures, they filmed the old buildings, and nothing more, until the sun started going down. According to the story, there were 4 of them. 2 guys, 2 girls. Classic. One of the guys had a small camera, one of the girls was recording on her phone. They were walking near the old schoolhouse area when they heard something behind them. Not a scream, not a voice, just footsteps. gravel crunching, slow, steady, like somebody was walking up the road behind them. So they turned around, nothing. Empty road, no person, no car, no ranger, nothing. Now, obviously, they laughed it off at first because that's what people do when they're, nervous. They make jokes. One of them supposedly said something like, "All right, whoever's out here, you got us." Nobody answered, so they kept walking. And a few seconds later, they heard the footsteps again. Same pace, same gravel sound, only this time closer. Now, personally, that's where I'm done. I'm not investigating. I'm not being brave. I'm not going back, to my car. I'm just running. But according to the story, they still thought it might be another visitor messing with them. So one of the guys walked back a little bit with the camera pointing down the road. And on the recording, supposedly, you can hear him say, "I don't see anybody." Then another voice answers, "I do, but here's the problem." None of the four admitted to saying it. Imagine that. Now, this is where the story ends. We don't get a follow-up. We don't know what happened to the four, if they made it out or anything. But it just goes to show, maybe avoid old ghost towns if you want to live a little longer. Or, if you want to spook, maybe old towns are for you. That's going to wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Please hit the little like button, subscribe, so you can hear more videos, more stories like these, and I'll catch you on the next one.